Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Today we're jumping into some entitled parents. Our first story today comes to us from Time Caterpillar 24. Entitled mother-in-law demands a paternity test and then tries to kidnap the baby. Let's jump right in. This is my sister's story. Please excuse the language. English is not my first language. My sister and her husband were together for 5 years before they got married in 2016. Within a month of their marriage, my sister found out she was expecting. She told very few people around her. Her mother-in-law was not one of them. When she was 12 weeks along, she finally felt secure enough to announce her pregnancy to everyone else. Entitled Instance 1. Entitled mother-in-law started crying, and everyone around her was celebrating. My sister announced it during a family lunch between our families. The only ones who knew were me, my parents, and her husband, my brother-in-law. My sister's in-laws and brother-in-law's siblings were just finding out. My sister had not wanted to share the news because she was worried about miscarrying. However, when her mother-in-law saw my parents and me smiling and not being surprised, she started bawling, screaming that my sister ruined her experience of finding out about her grandbaby by not telling her as soon as she found out. She was angry about the fact that my sister shared the news with us, her literal flesh and blood over her. Father-in-law had to remove her from the situation, and my sister felt guilty, as did my brother-in-law. They spent the rest of the afternoon trying to make up for it, while the rest of us were confused why mother-in-law thought she deserved to know first. This leads to another situation, entitled Instance 2. Now, since mother-in-law felt excluded, she made sure she was included from that point onwards, throwing a baby shower much before my sister wanted to, decor and arrangements, guest list, and invites being done without as much as consultation from my sister, inviting mostly mother-in-law's side of the family and not ours, forcing my sister to let her be present for each prenatal checkup and scan. Moving into the house with my sister and brother-in-law to help take care of her baby, trying to control what and how much my sister eats, including throwing out essential medication prescribed to her and arguing against my sister's nutritionist who had made a very extensive meal plan for her. Finally, brother-in-law and sister had enough. They asked her to move out and not stick her nose into everything that was not her concern. Now, mind you, my brother-in-law is a big softy and a mama's boy, but he will stand up for his wife. This led to the penultimate situation, entitled Instance 3. Mother-in-law lost her crap. How could her baby boy throw her out of the house? She decided it must be because my sister is a manipulative bee. Somehow, this string of thought landed her to presume that the baby could not be my brother-in-law's because brother-in-law wanted to wait until marriage to have sex and that my sister got pregnant too soon. So, mother-in-law went around spreading gossip and rumor everywhere, and to anyone stupid enough to listen to her, she went from calling my sister's unborn baby the her baby to now calling it every name possible. Devil child, the result of cheating, bastard, and whatnot. Then she started demanding she needed to see proof of paternity, otherwise she would cut the child and my sister off from the family and also never speak to her son again if he would not condemn his wife's behavior. She was also convinced my family knew of her pregnancy before her because we must have known she cheated and deceptively got her to marry brother-in-law to hide the fact. They again had enough, and this went on till she gave birth. Sis and brother-in-law went low contact with mother-in-law for months pre- and postpartum. Around the time the baby was 5 months old, mother-in-law apologized and stated she wanted access to her baby again. Sis and brother-in-law were very skeptical, but they agreed for supervised visits only and only if mother-in-law was constantly accompanied by either sister or brother-in-law. Mother-in-law did not like this. She once again threw a tantrum over how her son was corrupted by his evil wife, and her darling son would never do something like this to his mother. She again brought up paternity and called brother-in-law blind and an idiot for letting some common hussy force him to parent someone else's child. Brother-in-law calmly stated it was either his way or the highway. Mother-in-law chose his way. This is the peak of the entitled saga. Mother-in-law tries kidnapping the baby. So one of the days when mother-in-law was allowed to visit the baby, she absolutely is no help and demands to be catered to. Sis was very tired. The baby had colic that week, and she was run to the ground. Brother-in-law could not be home, and Sis tried rescheduling, but mother-in-law was already on the way, and it was nearly impossible to stop her. My sister says she had just handed the baby over to mother-in-law in the living room and sat on the couch. Big mistake. She has no idea when she dozed off, but Sis must have dozed off for a little while after being up with a fussy child and being exhausted and dealing with postpartum issues. When she came to, neither mother-in-law nor the baby was to be found. She looked for the baby frantically and called her mother-in-law, but no answer. She got in touch with brother-in-law, who drove home, picked her up, and they went to mother-in-law's house to look for her. Father-in-law answered and said he had not seen mother-in-law since she drove down to visit my sister, but her phone was on Find My Phone, and they could track her phone from his device as they shared the same cloud. Sure enough, within minutes, they see the phone moving towards a local hospital and lab area. It is a one-way road and a dead end. They hop in a car and drive to the hospital. Sis finds mother-in-law arguing with the hospital staff for not performing any medical procedures and tests on the baby without the parents. Mother-in-law wants to get a paternity test performed on the baby. She was detained by the hospital security, and the baby was in the custody of the hospital, who thought that she had kidnapped the baby. Sis and brother-in-law reached just in time for the hospital to be calling the cops and trying to locate them. They had to show 10 different types of proof of identity and parentage to the staff before they were allowed to take their baby again. Brother-in-law threatened legal action against mother-in-law, not sure what came of that. This happened years ago, and mother-in-law and brother-in-law and my sister have the most strained relationship. Baby barely knows their grandma, but is quite close to grandpa, who visits often. Well, OP, I don't know why you're calling this trying to kidnap the baby, because they removed the baby from your house without your knowledge. That is definitely kidnapping. There should have been charges filed here and a definite no contact order. I'm not sure how you can even think about your mother-in-law after that happened. Do me a quick favor, have a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're not actually subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. Our next story today comes to us from Amma Burmad. Entitled parents think highly of their son, got proven wrong. Let's jump right in. Hi, I'm a teacher, and I have a lot of entitled parent stories I would like to share, and here's one of them. This was about over a year ago, before the pandemic. I'm a math and science teacher for senior high school students. We teach in a curriculum where students can choose their career paths in high school, and my school is in a more of a rural area, but a big one, about 2.5 to 3,000 students. I have this class for agriculture majors and had 2 or 3 troublemakers from time to time. I have a student who had irregular attendance in my class. I'll call him Liam, not real name. I asked other teachers if the student is attending their class, but most of them have the same situation. But the advisor of the student confirms that Liam is there for the homeroom proceedings every morning. I teach that class in the afternoon. One time I got a hold onto Liam in the break time and asked him to come with me in my office. I called out his behavior and asked him if there are some problems that he is going through so I could assist him. I showed him his records from my class, not everything, some attendance for that week, and some activities he had missed. He stated that he is going home to take care of his younger sister. So I arranged some take-home activities for Liam for him to get caught up with the class. He didn't pass any of these activities, so I gave him a communication letter for his parents to go to school immediately, so I could prepare some interventions regarding Liam's issues. There are no responses, and Liam said that his parents are too busy. The semester ended and Liam received a failing grade from me, but only me. The other subject teachers felt pity for Liam's stories and gave him passing marks. The following week, during the parent-teacher meeting, the principal called me to his office. When I went inside, there was parents there and our principal. The principal told me that the parents are Liam's, and they needed explanation about Liam's failing grades. I greeted them, "Hi ma'am and sir, I'm Amma Burmad, your son's math and science teacher. I believe you're here to discuss Liam's grades." Our principal is sitting across the office, but is carefully listening. I am translating here. Yeah, I believe you've done some mistakes in grading my son, and you most probably are not computing your student's grades right. He's trying to intimidate me. I'm sorry, sir, but I am most sure that my grading is correct, and I have been very transparent with it and discussing it with my students frequently. I can show you my records if you want. So I went quickly to my office to pick my records and laptop, then came back. So where's my son's records? I can use my connections against your school if you're tampering with my son's records. Showed him Liam's records and attendance that is almost blank and filled with absent remarks. Your son is not attending my class because he said he is attending to your sick daughter at the hospital. What sick daughter? My daughter died almost a year ago. I know you're making this up. My son wouldn't lie like that. He is an honor student since elementary and never had bad grades. I know you're attacking my son personally because he said you have a problem with him. My deepest condolences, sir, for your loss, but I barely know your son. He almost never enters my class, and I tried contacting you through my letters, but you were too busy, your son said. I sent him take-home activities, but did not pass, and keeps on saying that he can't do the activities because of your daughter. My principal barged in and told the parents that I am one of the best teachers in the school. He really did, and I liked it. And that I would never do something like that. I have students who hate my guts because I'm young to be a teacher for them, but that never affected their grades. Hey, I'm not your values teacher, so as long as you're good in my class, I'll give you good grades. I'll take this to court. My son always leaves the house in the morning and comes back in the afternoon after class. Where would he be other than his class? Sir, there's no need to go to court, okay? Please come back here tomorrow with your son. I'll prepare a test. If your son really is attending my class, then I'm sure he'll pass. And if your son gets at least 50% of the score, then I'll change his grades. Liam's parents agreed, but the next day, as I prepared the test for Liam, his parents came to my office and apologized to me for their rudeness. Turns out that Liam is lying to his parents and hoping that his father's status, his father is a politician, would intimidate us into changing his grades. Liam is sneaking out of the school during lunch break to meet his girlfriend that already had 2 kids. God knows what they're doing. Liam attends my class regularly after this, and I reached out to him, then he shared his stories with me. We became sort of buddies, and he invites me sometimes to hang out. Well, OP, you sound like a pretty cool teacher, and I wish there were more teachers like you in the schools. You're looking out for the children, you want what's best for them, and unfortunately, that's not a normal thing these days. Our last story today comes to us from Azalea_. Entitled American tourist parents demand free tickets to the zoo because they knowingly arrived at closing time and accused us of ruining their children's vacation. Let's jump right in. Buckle up, folks, because this one is going to be a ride. Since this summer, I started working at the most popular zoo in my country in our capital city. A little bit of background information about the zoo. We have this separate museum area that is part of the zoo's company but not part of the actual zoo itself, and you have to buy separate tickets for that museum visit. It closes at 5 p.m. We also have a planetarium which is inside of the zoo, which you can visit for free. There's a show and movie about the universe every hour that lasts for 30 minutes. The zoo closes at 6 during normal weekdays, and so the final planetarium show starts at 5 p.m., ending at 5:30 p.m., so the visitors will still have 30 minutes left to leave the zoo. So this American family, which consisted of a mother, a father, and 2 very loud young boys, bought tickets for the zoo and for the museum at 3 p.m. They first wanted to visit the zoo, and we told them that the museum closes at 5, so we recommended they visit the museum first. But the boys were screaming that they wanted to see the animals, so they insisted they'd visit the zoo first, and so they did. We had also told them about the planetarium shows and how the final one is at 5. Then, at 4:45 p.m., they suddenly rush into the museum and demand to be let in, despite the fact that we don't actually let people into the museum anymore after 4:30. They yelled at the museum staff that they had bought tickets and had a right to be let in, and when the museum staff told them that they should have visited earlier and that they were already closing down, the parents literally told their kids to run into the museum, so they got in and the museum staff had to let the parents in as well. So the museum staff let them in under the pretense that they really had to leave at 5 p.m. 15 minutes later, the staff walks up to the family and tells them they're closed now and that they had to leave. They threw a fit and refused to leave. Security had to come in to literally escort them out of the premises, and they were yelling and cursing at the security guy the entire time. I was working the cash register and administration desk at the time, and the couple walked up to the office and angrily demanded that they'd been given free tickets for the museum for the next day because they didn't get their money's worth, because they couldn't see everything of the museum in 15 minutes, even though they knew the museum would close at 5, and they knowingly only went in at 4:45. They threatened to sue us if we didn't give them free tickets. My manager eventually did agree to give them the free tickets for just the museum for the following day. So the family left and we thought that was the end of it. Boy, oh boy, were we wrong. 10 minutes later they come back, angry again because they missed the final show of the planetarium since it was now 5:20. Again, the planetarium and all its shows are free. They didn't pay for that. That is included in the zoo ticket. We told them that and reminded them that we had told them that the final show would be at 5. And still, they threw another temper tantrum and then demanded that they'd be given free zoo tickets as well for the next day, along with the free museum ticket we had already agreed to give them, because they claimed they also didn't get their money's worth because they missed all the planetarium shows, which they knew the final time of. So they knew about the museum closing at 5 and still decided to only arrive at 4:45. They also knew that the final planetarium show would start at 5 and didn't go to any earlier ones either. This was all their own doing, and still they demanded that we give them free tickets for their lack of time management. My manager thankfully didn't put up with their final request and told them that we could not give them free zoo tickets because they missed a free event, especially since they knew about the final showtime. The couple, of course, threw a temper tantrum and cursed at us, threatening to sue us. Good luck doing that in a country where lawsuits like that literally never happen. They demanded to speak to the manager, and my team manager dropped the biggest "I am the manager" that I've ever witnessed. I was just listening to it all behind my cash register with a dropped jaw. The children started crying, and the couple accused us of making them cry and ruining their vacation. They literally said, "You just ruined the vacation of our children." They also accused us of horrible customer service and that we weren't helping them at all, even though we had literally just given them free tickets to the museum. So we ended up having to call security again to escort the family out of the zoo, and my team manager ended up revoking their free ticket for the museum as well for how incredibly rude they behaved. Good on her, she's an awesome manager. Ah yes, the rest of the world doesn't have that same thing that the USA does, where they sue everybody for every little thing, trying to get rich as quickly as they can. Oh my gosh. Check out all 3 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.